Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about the invisible rules that govern all life on Earth. There's this fundamental limit, right? It dictates exactly how many living things our planet can actually handle.
So let's just start with a puzzle. Think about it. Why isn't the entire world just completely buried in rabbits or squirrels? I mean, these guys reproduce like crazy, so what's stopping one species from just taking over the whole planet?
Well, the answer to that puzzle lies in this really fundamental concept in ecology. It's basically a set of rules that applies to every single population out there. I mean, from bacteria in a tiny petri dish all the way up to lions on the savannah.
And that limit has a name: carrying capacity. You'll often see it shown as the letter K. So what is it? Put simply, it's the max number of individuals of any species that an area can support, like forever, without falling apart. And this is not some random number. It's a hard ceiling, and it's set by the competition for stuff that's running out. Food, water, and just plain old space.
Okay, so what does it actually look like when a population starts to bump up against this limit over time? Well, ecologists have a couple of really cool ways to show us exactly how this all plays out.
All right, take a look at this graph. This is the classic S-shaped curve, what's known as logistic growth. See how it starts off slow down at the bottom? Then, boom, it shoots up in this super fast growth phase. But, and this is the key part, watch what happens as resources start getting tight. The curve starts to level off. The growth slows way down until it kind of just stabilizes right there at that carrying capacity line. At this point, you've basically got birth rates and death rates evening each other out.
But what if a population just goes wild with no immediate limits in sight? Well, then you get this, the J-shaped curve. This is pure exponential growth. The population just explodes, shooting way past what the environment can actually handle. This is called an overshoot, and it's bad news. It almost always ends in a massive population crash, a bust, because they've just eaten, drunk, and used up everything.
Okay, so we get it. There's a limit. But what exactly is that limit made of? What are the actual forces at play that create and enforce this carrying capacity?
It really boils down to two main categories. First, you've got the living things, the biotic factors. Think predators, disease, that sort of stuff. Then you've got the non-living things, the abiotic factors. This is all about the physical environment.
So let's talk biotic factors. This is all about life interacting with other life. Yeah, there's the obvious stuff, like a wolf chasing a deer, but it's also more subtle things, right? Like, is there enough grass for the deer to eat in the first place? How quickly does a disease spread when everyone's packed together? And of course, that constant fight for the very last berry on the bush.
And on the other side, you have the abiotic factors. These are the non-living parts of the equation. A brutal drought could just wipe out the water supply. A super cold winter can be a game ender. Even things like how much sunlight an area gets or the nutrients in the soil. Heck, even just the physical room to live. All of these can put a hard stop on population growth.
Now, out of all those living factors, I want to zoom in on one: competition. This is a huge one. It's one of the most powerful forces shaping a population. And it's really important to get that this competition plays out in two very different ways.
First, you've got interest-specific competition. Intra just means within. So this is a rivalry within the same species. Look at these two squirrels. They're both gray squirrels, and they're fighting over the exact same pile of nuts. The more squirrels you have, the tougher this competition gets.
And that brings us to the second type: interspecific competition. Inter means between, so now we're talking about a showdown between different species that are after the same stuff. This picture is perfect. You've got a gray squirrel and a red squirrel going head-to-head for the same food. And this is a real-world battle. In a lot of places, the bigger, bolder gray squirrels have actually pushed out the native red squirrels, which has a massive impact on the red squirrel population.
Okay, so this all makes sense for squirrels and deer. But what about us, humans? These rules apply to every other living thing on the planet. So why is figuring out the carrying capacity for people so ridiculously difficult?
Well, for one thing, we're the only species that keeps changing the rules. Think about it. Technology, like agriculture and medicine, lets us support way more people than would naturally be possible. We ship resources all over the planet, so a drought in one place doesn't stop us. And here's the kicker. Our lifestyles are all over the map. The amount of stuff one person uses can be massively different from someone else, which makes calculating one single number for humanity pretty much impossible.
So the big takeaway here is that for humans, carrying capacity isn't some fixed, static number. It's more like a moving target, a dynamic balance that's always shifting. You can see it in this chart, right? Things like new technologies can push the limit up, but other things, like polluting our environment, can pull that limit way, way down. We are constantly in this tug-of-war with our own limits.
Which leaves us with one last pretty big thought. For centuries, we've managed to bend and sometimes what feels like break the rules that box in every other species. But those natural laws, they haven't gone away. So the real question isn't just what's the number? It's, are we smart enough to create a stable S-curve for ourselves? Or is our way of life locking us into that scary J-curve, heading for a massive overshoot and crash on a global scale? That's the real puzzle. And for now, the answer is still up to us.